first we would like to thank the exporters of this country because these strategies, plans, if you really look at it, if you can repeat these kind of sessions every year, I would like to do that as a start if you can do in your workshops. See when Export Development Board was established. In 80s, what did we say? In 90s, what did we say? In 2015, what did we say? In 2017, what did we say? The previous strategy for export development, what did we say? Why do we repeat the thing over and over again? What we are really understanding, we have to understand this is a matter of execution. This is not a matter of a plan. And some of these export strategies and where Sri Lanka needs to be are fundamentals. And these fundamentals have not been fixed. And we keep calling on stakeholder meetings, ideations, and all that. I'm sorry to say, but this is where the real problem is. If you want to solve a problem, you need to understand where the problem is. Problem is not the strategy. Problem is execution. Problem is, do we have a collective will to execute what we agree upon? Today when I wake up, there's a message on my WhatsApp saying 16 shrimp containers are stuck in the customs because one official is not willing to adhere to the SOP that was agreed 3 months ago. So this is where the problems lies, right? Do we really as a country believe that we want to achieve these targets? And do we have the political will, the institutional support, and the exporters' support to make this change? And therefore, apart from us discussing in this room, export development is not an isolated strategy. It's about competitiveness. What is the Ministry of Transportation doing at this point that's going to support our competitiveness? What is the Ministry of Education that is struggling to bring a new reform to education? As exporters, are we supporting it verbally, vocally? Because that is to support us. But the Education Ministry is stuck with traditional mindsets and people who are not willing to support the change, and we are trying to develop export strategy. Are we supportive enough in the digital transformation? Because that is going to enhance our competitiveness. Are we willing to take a step in helping Ministry of Finance to do the changes that they want to do? There is no isolated strategy that's going to make competitive exports. Export competitiveness, as clearly said by Mr. Takafumi, is a country's competitiveness. So country's competitiveness does not come through EDB or Ministry of Industries. It's a collective effort of the entire country, starting from a child that goes to school, to a university, to all the institutions in the country, helping in this course. So therefore, we might have to open up a little more in this stakeholder engagement to ensure that there's this entire strategy is interconnected to everything that we do as a government. And the other piece is there is no subsegment as exporters. It's industry. If somebody is doing local manufacturing, they are also part of the global economy now. There is no local economy. And they are a big part of this stakeholder group. We are talking to the 12%. We are leaving out 80%. And that 80% will be on streets when we want to open up the market. The competitiveness is not only for the exporters. Competitiveness has to be for entire industry. If you are producing a good for local market, that has to be competitive globally. That has to adhere to the global standards. That is where the change is going to come from. And there's a big segment of stakeholders we might miss within next few months. I really want the organization to think little broad. And then when it comes to the basics, that's what I said. So we might have to distinguish between strategy and the basics. So basics, there is no compromisation, there's no discussion, it has to be part of the national agenda, and somebody needs to be accountable to changing customs, somebody should be accountable to changing policy, somebody should be accountable for getting these trade agreements on table on a particular date, right? So that is nothing to discuss. These forums should not even discuss some of these factors which we have been talking since 1980s, right? And the second piece is the change management. So even we know this needs to happen, who's going to champion the change in different institutions? Who's going to champion change in Ministry of Fisheries? Who's going to champion change in Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Plantation? This problem is on supply chain, not with the exporters. Problem is in the government institutions, inland revenue, the customs. Now who's going to champion change? And what is the deadline to that change? And thirdly, it's about the strategy. Yes, the strategy needs KPIs, strategy needs collective accountability, KPIs for industry, KPIs for ministry, KPIs for the president. We all need KPIs, and we never had that. We never reviewed that. We never held anybody accountable. IMF came and said the collapse of this country is due to institutional corruption, first line. And I would love ADB or a third party who is supporting us to tell what is the root cause of this problem. So we can clearly attack that. You know, which institution is responsible for for exports growth? We have to now open up and clearly detail out in your diagnostics report, Sri Lanka did not move an inch because of this institution, because of this ministry, because of this decision that was not taken. That is the clarity we need. Otherwise, this is not going to take any change. And apart from that, why do we need this export change? This is the country strategy. There is nothing above this. This is the country strategy that you guys are trying to create. There is nothing beyond, nothing below, nothing above. And then, why are we doing it? It's a diversification. It's economic inclusion. It's the growth of the entire nation, how it needs to move to the villages and make employment, make people part of it, how the SME sector is going to be part of this equation, right? And that why piece has to be spoken about. And this the strategy that we are going to create, if you really look at it today, there's only 4 issues. I just jotted down while I was here. One is the supply chain. We have exporters, we have created brand, we don't have raw material. What do? Either we improve raw material, it takes 5 years, 10 years, until that we should import. That's it. There's no discussion. Raw material for exports has to be imported. There is no discussion. Otherwise, we are not going to improve. That's it. Right? So who's going to look at supply chain? Who's accountable for supply? Yes, Ministry of Industries, we fight tooth and nail every day. But who's accountable for the supply chain? Growing coconuts will take us 5 years. Catching fish in the sea will take us 2-3 years. But what do we do today? You have the market, you have the brand, you have the access, you have been demanded. That's the big problem. Yeah, we can create strategy, but who's going to take the lead? And then the policies. Yes, the policies need to be clear, crystal clear, agreed upon, and somebody has to hold it and ensure that it's not institutional. We can't allow this individual institution to run policy for exports. It has to be under Ministry of Industries, that's it. So this policy, I mean, I'm talking on behalf of the government, but these are the changes that we need to drive, and the highlights of this strategy need to highlight the root causes of the problem. And thirdly, about the common agenda of the entire government, right? So we need to ensure that everything that we do in education, health, technology, all that align to the strategy. And last is partnerships. And if the exporters are not willing to partnership, we are not going to grow. That's it. Simple. How many of you can create global brands? Few? 2, 3? 1 a year? Are we going to grow? We are not going to grow. We have to either partner large brands, or we either have to bring FDIs that's going to partner our capacity. Either we have to bring greenfield investments that's going to make the change. And what's going to take us to 35 billion? Are we going to put all these effort to reach 35 billion? Is that what we're going to do as a country? Where is the dream for 250 billion? Where is the dream for Vietnam to be a 650 billion? Who has that dream? Are we going to do this through incremental changes of a current portfolio of goods? Who's talking about the creative economy? Who's talking about the circularity? Who's talking about the niche markets that's available, and how many exporters are investing in R&D? How many exporters are going to take willingness to co-create innovations and IPs that's coming out of universities? If you want to do the same product over and over again, yes, you will get shareholder value, you will be better for a few years, that's it. What's the country strategy? Right? So we have to have this bold ambition. And yes, in ambitions you have monthly, yearly targets. Yes, 35 billion is a good target to have, but that's not bold enough. Right? So this is what I have to say at the start. And obviously, in places I can involve, I'll get involved. But the strategy has to be bold. It has to be crystal clear. It has to come up with a timeline. It has to come up with a work plan. It has to be divided between different ministries, different industries, and the government. What is the role of the government? What is the role of the foreign missions? What is the role of the stakeholders? What is the role of ADB? What is the role of World Bank? What is the role of IMF? All that has to be articulated in whatever the document we are going to get out. And that has to be the Bible for at least 5 years, which will keep evolving because strategies don't last. Every year we need to sit here and review it. And that's what I have to say. But I wish all of you and thank for being part of it and being again bold enough to self-reflect, because you guys who is here is, in 40s, 50s. Sean, how many years that you have talked about the change that we need, right? The exporters who are here, right? So, it's not that we don't know what needs to happen. It's not that we don't, right? It's just that we are making ourselves happy. Okay, we have another session of export strategy development, and we can be happy for a few months, but we have to be much active, drive change. Change doesn't happen through government. Do you think change happens through governments? Does anybody here think that when you change government, the change happens? Change happens through people. People has to demand. Entire exporters has to come down to streets to make a change. That's how change happens. If you believe in that particular trade agreement needs to happen, Mr. Vimalendra, not only you, the entire country, every child has to come to street to get that done. That's how change happens. Change is difficult, but it can only happen through people. So how do you communicate this out to the public? This language is not native to 90% of the people who are in this country. Now who's going to translate my speech today to Sinhala? This is not going to happen between us. This has to be understood, articulated, and believed by a person in Jaffna, a child in Batticaloa. And if that child doesn't know what is our export strategy, we are a failure. If this export strategy, we don't have a way to take to every school and explain, we are a failure. If the entire university system does not put their signature on this document, we are a failure. If every institution, including ADB, IMF, World Bank, does not sign on the same paper, we are a failure. Until that happens, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. We have to drive change, and it's a difficult task. And I hope everybody is up to the task. It's not an exercise that we are going to have few sessions here and candy and, with a certain group of people which we have met for years and years. It's about the rest of the stakeholders. It's about how do you take it out. It's about how do you make everybody believe they are part of this strategy. And that is how change is going to take place. And we will do the best that we could do, but each of you has a role to make that change. Each of you has to speak up. Each of you has to write. Each of you has to talk to TV. Each of you has to talk to paper. Each of you has to take your own initiative in the areas that you work to propagate what we are going to do as a country to reach a 300 billion export market. And thank you very much.